Hello, everybody. It's good to be with you as always. So Jean Klein, the noted French philosopher and non-dualist, who was the one who coined the title of this video, which is that all suffering begins with comparison. And that may seem simplistic, but it's true. And another way to put that would be, what's wrong with right now until you compare it with your imagination? May not be quite as snappy, but I think it really tells the tale. What is wrong with right now until you compare it to your imagination? Like, let's just check. I'm going to check in right here, okay? So right here, right now, there's no problem whatsoever. And just to be more explicit, I have enough money. I'm tall enough, even though I have neuropathy and arthritis and stuff. I'm in perfect health for this unit at this time. There's no problem with those things. I noticed the other day I was walking to the kitchen and I always tell people I kind of walk funny now because of the neuropathy. And but I was walking to the kitchen and I noticed while I was walking just perfect for this unit, perfectly. And because there's no thinking, there's just this. It's when we compare this to imagination that we suffer. And Nisargadatta told us this teaching is what? Freedom from imagination. And that sounds very simplistic too. But actually, non-duality at heart is very, very simple. It's so simple that you can't see it. And it's so simple, yet it's been layered over with so much stuff. You just can't get to the heart of it. This teaching is about the heart of it. So what is wrong in your life right now? If you just don't think about it, just check in right now with right where you are and tell me how things are going. Until you think. Freeze thinking for just a minute. And what's wrong with right now until you think. That's what happens. And just so you know, you don't actually think. You're not the thinker. Thoughts arise, but they don't arise from, to, for, or about anybody. Thoughts arise. It's part of every human arising, just about. I mean, unless there's an enlightened being there that might not be thinking at the moment, or might not be believing thinking, because that's what happens. Thoughts arise. We believe them. Some thoughts are worth believing. Like my wife loves me. That's worth believing. Is it true? I don't know, but I kind of think so. But it's worth believing, whether it's true or not. And so our marriage is fine until I compare it to my imagination. And for a lot of people in my age, that they might be looking, thinking, oh, I really like a little younger wife. I don't want a younger wife. I want exactly what I have, which is Betsy Hackett Davis. And there's no problem there until I compare it with something in my imagination, which I do not do. I can tell you that the first autumn that I met Betsy, and we went out of a town to a cabin in the mountains, which was pretty sweet. And I remember us hugging, and we were hugging. We'd had some kind of little spat, because that's the kind of thing that might arise at that point until we really got settled down, which wasn't long. And now that kind of thing just doesn't happen very often. But at any rate, I can remember hugging her, and a voice going off in my head that said, "Don't try to upgrade." That's what it was said. Don't try to upgrade. In other words, you can't upgrade from this. This is her. This is what you've been looking for. Don't try to upgrade. So I just didn't think about it. I never thought about upgrading. I really didn't. I've never thought about being married to anybody since I met anybody else since I met Betsy. I'm not jealous of any man's wife or any single woman or anything like that, because I can't upgrade. And guess what? You can't upgrade. This is it. You can't upgrade. Get this through your heads. Upgrading may occur, but you didn't do it. And when I say upgrading, I mean, I can tell you that my life situation, about 20 years ago or so, I was living in a park and as a, destitute bum. And guess what? My situation is greatly upgraded from there, but I didn't do it. And I knew in that park that I couldn't do it. I did. I knew that I needed to get my ass up and start walking towards some and find some place that could help me. But I knew that I couldn't get myself out of that park. And so I found an organization that did, right? That could and did, and I haven't been back since, and hope to God I ain't headed there. So there is, how much money do you have? Well, until you start thinking about it, do you have enough money? I mean, are you alive right now? Are you hungry? Some people may be. God bless them for that. I've been hungry for days, and I know what that's like. So if you're hungry, you're probably not going to be able to see with me that there's no problem there without thinking, because your belly's doing your thinking, and I get that. But if you're not hungry or cold or, or just too wet and shivery or just too damn hot and just, it's the heat's just terrible, this, that, and the other, there ain't nothing wrong here. Isn't that just stupidly simple? There's nothing wrong here. You're making up the fact that there's something wrong here. Everything is just fine as it is. And you know that there are personal views here about Ukraine and Russia, but that doesn't, but from my position, speaking as awakeness, there's just that, right? There's just this, just that, which is part of this. I can't really say that anything's wrong because I can't know the end game, this thing, because there is no end. And everything does what? Everything goes round and round and round as the content of this arising changes and changes and changes. It does. But how about you? You don't change. You're what's viewing this arising. Do you ever look at that? Instead of getting lost in the content of this arising, like, well, let's see, it's a Tuesday at 5 o'clock and the sun's going down. How's Fred doing? How is this doing for Fred? And the British stock market dropped 3 points. Was that good for Fred or bad for Fred? Right? But what is it prior to thinking about it? It just is. It's not anything. It just is. So I always believed, because I'm the shortest guy in my family. The next shortest guy in my family is 6'1". So, and I'm like 5'9". So you can imagine just how awful it was being 4 inches shorter than everybody, than all of my brothers. And so I always thought I should be taller. That was bullshit. I was 5'9". How tall was I supposed to be? 5'9". What caused suffering about that? Thinking I should be other than 5'9", which was just utter bullshit. But I suffered mightily over it. Damn, everybody else in my family is tall. I should be tall. Says who? But it's not what the unit wants. Who told you this world, this life was about this unit? Where did you, wait a minute. You know that unit is not the center of the universe. Did you put that unit? Did you pretend like that unit over there is the center of the universe? Well, it's not. So if you're thinking that that's the center of the universe and that all of this is about you, you're wrong. And even if you say, well, I don't really think it's about me, Fred, you check, you double check, because I'm going to tell you that most of the people that get to me, that they think that they don't believe that it's all about them, but at the end of an awakening session, they see that they did think it was all about them. And it doesn't mean that there can't be compassion there and everything else. If there is, wonderful. If there's not, there can't be what isn't. I mean, there's no such thing as what isn't. There's just what is. God can't upgrade here. You know, I mean, he just can't. And when I say he can't, it's, you'll pardon me, it's a sexist commentary. And this is just an old man. He's got his habits, and I can't do any better. If I would, and I could, I would. And sometimes I do better, but not today. And I couldn't have, because I didn't. And you can stay as, you know, mad about that as you want, and it will do zero good. But please, you can be offended by it if you think that was wrong, but was it? By what measure do you go? So well, we have this standard. Well, okay, we have a standard. Who made the standard up? Well, let her suffer. This is not about being rude, or, but it may be about breaking rules, because, you know, there are we have lots of rules in our lives, don't we? Lots and lots and lots of rules. And I don't just mean traffic and laws. I mean just rules, because the rule is that when I see somebody that I know that I'm supposed to wave to them, or say hello, or somehow acknowledge their presence. We all want to be acknowledged, don't we? But what if I don't feel like that? So I don't wave at them. They get mad because of their expectations, because they believe that I should have waved to them, and I didn't, right? Or my team didn't win the game. I thought we were fated to win the game. Damn it, my team didn't win. This is just wrong. I'm so angry over what? I'm taking the score of this game and comparing it to my imagination, where the numbers were reversed. And whenever I take it to my imagination, it's not as it, will never hold up to imagination. It cannot possibly. Look what imagination thinks. Thinks you're the center of the universe. Thinks, you know, that this is, you know, there's something wrong here. But there's not. There's nothing wrong here. It depends on not what you're looking at, but where you're looking from. Are you looking from the unit? Are you looking at it, meaning as the unit? Right? Are you looking as the character, your character? This character was known as Fred, and then it was discovered there ain't no Fred. And there hasn't really been much in the way of problems since, right? And there hadn't been a problem in a long, long time. I can't remember in early post-awakening, there were probably problems, because, you know, you just get clarity as you go, if you're lucky, and you pursue it. But don't think it's just going to drop out of the sky. It may, but my advice is pursue it. So we set standards in order, like standards for how we do in life, goals and all that stuff. Who sets them? We do. Who says we failed? We do. And if I go work for a company that's got their own goals and they tell me I'm not meeting them, that's their goals. It ain't my goals. So I haven't, you know, I haven't come up to their expectations, but I've always reached mine. I work the hardest. I mean, I'm not really in the world in that regard anymore. But I would work the hardest I can. I do that with this, is I work the hardest I can. That has to be good enough. And when I check with Betsy, she says, well, you know, it's good enough. And when she asks me how she's doing, I'll just say splendidly or good enough. And she may tell me splendidly. It's not like we judge each other. I know that Betsy's always trying her hardest, always. It's just in that unit's nature. You know, it's like a shark. It just can't stop. It just can't sit still, because if it does, it'll die. It'll drown. So she's always doing this and always working on this. She's always doing her best. Aren't you? Aren't you always doing your best to be you? You know, I bet if I met you, I couldn't find a better you if I looked for the rest of my life. I think I'd find you to be a perfectly satisfactory you. Your name is Helen. Hello, Helen. And notice that you're just absolutely a perfect Helen. You are the ideal specimen of a Helen. Because guess what? There is no other Helen with this DNA. And if I want to imagine, or you want to imagine, we could both imagine that this one is failing to produce as it should. It's doing the only thing it can. And all of these units are doing the only thing that they can. And we only suffer from them when we believe what? When we believe in imagination. And that's your whole problem. Because every single problem that you have comes down to misidentification, and that's imagination. You imagine you're something you're not, and therefore you suffer. So I'm going to keep this short, but I hope the message has gotten through, because if it has, you'll feel better. And I'm doing my best to help you feel better. I love you very much. Bye now.